Hi, I'm Pastor Chester Hitchcock, and someone recently asked me the question, was Jesus in the tomb for 3 days and 3 nights? First of all, let me say I appreciate these kinds of questions, and I want to encourage anyone who watches my videos that if you have a Bible question, write it in the comment section and I'll do my best to give you an answer for it. And if you have not subscribed to this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to get a notification the next time a video that comes up. But the reason this question was asked is partly because in Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, here is what Jesus says. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Now, some have been troubled by this verse because the majority of Christians accept that Jesus died on the evening of the 6th day, which would have been Friday, what we call Good Friday, that he was in the tomb on the 7th day, and that he rose early on the 1st day of the week, not fulfilling a full 3 days and 3 nights. In response to the confusion, some sincere pastors and evangelists have attempted to explain these seeming contradictions by trying to argue that the word heart is used rather than the word tomb, and some have gone on to try to argue that while Jesus did die on the 6th day, which was Friday, that the 3 days and 3 nights could have actually counted back to Gethsemane because of his suffering. And others have argued that Jesus didn't actually die on Good Friday, that he actually died on Wednesday, allowing Jesus to be in the tomb Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 3 full days and their nights, making 3 full days plus some on Wednesday and some on Sunday. Now, these are all noble attempts, but I believe that they miss a much simpler explanation that is more biblically sound, and it is called the inclusive reckoning of time. Here are some biblical examples of inclusive reckoning of time. In the book of Esther, in chapter 4 and 5, in chapter 4, verse 16, Esther said, quote, "Go gather all the Jews who are present at Shushan and fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day." That's chapter 4, verse 16. But in chapter 5, verse 1, it says, "Now it happened on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace." Now, it could be argued that Esther wanted the Jews to be fasting and praying even during her visit with the king, or it was simply a case of inclusive reckoning of time. The fact that the fasting and prayer began before the visit didn't require that the fasting would be finished before the visit. And then you have the circumcision of baby boys. Now, since the days of Abraham, circumcision was required of all baby boys on the 8th day. But in Genesis chapter 17, verse 12, it says, "He that is circumcised, he that is 8 days old." And Luke chapter 2, verse 21 says, "When the 8 days were accomplished, he was circumcised." In Luke chapter 1, verse 15, it says, "On the 8th day." So if the child was born in the evening, let's say 10 minutes before sundown, will 8 days actually be accomplished in the morning of the 8th day? Well, no, not literally. But yes, if you count partial days as full days. This is an example of how even in Bible times they recognized what we know as inclusive reckoning of time. And then there is the story of Joseph and his brothers. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 17, it says, "And he," that is Joseph, "put them," which would be his brothers, "in prison for 3 days." But in chapter 42, verse 18, the very next verse, it says, "Then Joseph said to them on the 3rd day." So it seems likely that once he spoke to them on the 3rd day, that he released them all with the exception of Simeon, of course. Then there was King Rehoboam. In 2 Chronicles chapter 10, verse 5, it says, "So he said to them, 'Come back to me after 3 days.'" And in verse 12, in the same chapter, it says, "So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king had appointed, saying, 'Come back to me the 3rd day.'" Here is a great example of how after the 3rd day and on the 3rd day and the 3rd day all meant the same thing. And then we have Jesus' own words about his death and his resurrection. It says that he would be killed, and says, and 3 days he would be in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights, as we saw in Matthew chapter 12, verse 40. In Mark chapter 8, verse 31, it says, after 3 days he would rise again. And in John chapter 2, verse 19, it says, and in 3 days he will rise again. And then in Matthew chapter 16, verse 21, chapter 17, verse 23, chapter 20, verse 19, Luke chapter 13, verse 32, and Luke chapter 24, verse 46, 5 times it says, the 3rd day he would rise again. Jesus referred to this time frame at least 8 times, using 4 different phrases when he talked about it. This alone should be reason enough to see that it's not necessary to count back to Gethsemane or back to Wednesday instead of Friday for any reason. Also, the other passages referenced to demonstrate the inclusive reckoning of time in different stories in the Bible. However, there is no biblical rationale or biblical example to count back to Gethsemane or have to count back to Wednesday. And furthermore, the Bible is clear when the counting was actually to begin. It was to begin at his death, not at Gethsemane, not when he was suffering, but according to Matthew chapter 16, verse 21, that he would be killed and be raised again on the 3rd day. Mark chapter 8, verse 31, that he would be killed and after 3 days would rise again. And in Luke chapter 9, verse 22, that he would be slain and be raised the 3rd day. Again, all of these statements are from Jesus' mouth, or at least an understanding of the writer as they were recording their account of the gospel and what Jesus said. He makes it clear that the beginning of the counting is marked by his death, not the time that he spent in Gethsemane. Also, he is recorded as using the term the 3rd day in Matthew and Mark, and after 3 days in the book of Luke. Obviously, therefore, 3 days and 3 nights, in 3 days, after 3 days, and the 3rd day all refer to the same period of time. And to attempt to explain 3 days and 3 nights any other way requires more speculation than Bible evidence. Inclusive reckoning of time, which means any part of the day, is reckoned as representative of the time frame of 3 days and 3 nights, or a day and a night. I hope that this video has answered the question for those who were wondering. And again, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section and ask me any question about the Bible, and I'll do my best to give you an answer. If this video has been helpful, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, also pass it on to a friend and let them see it. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you can be sure to get a notification the next time a video is produced. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.